years ago, and my first email address, I only started using email when I was 18 or 19, so all throughout high school, a good chunk of my learning and my educational formative years, we didn't even have the internet. And I just remember, I just got to thinking about how before the internet, if you wanted to get information on something, if you were interested in a topic or you had to do research for a school paper or something, you had to go to the library and read all these books. And I know you still probably do that in school. I would imagine that they still expect you to use sort of reputable sources for school things, but really it's amazing how much information is out there, and I think it's a great thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing by any means. I think it's awesome, and I really think it's kind of transforming the way our society interacts with each other and within itself. For information to be so freely available to everyone, and for people to be able to get their opinions out there, like you and me right now. This never would have happened. Even something small like this whole whispering community we've got building here. I mean, when I was younger and I would hear people whispering every once in a while and kind of sneak it here and there, I never would have imagined that I could just go on the computer and hear it whenever I wanted. So obviously there's really good things to the internet, but here's what I was thinking about. The last few years, I have felt myself to be really kind of getting really unsure of my views on some things, or my how am I trying to say this? I've gotten to where I used to feel a lot more sorry, I'm at a loss for words here. I was thinking about this really well on my way home, but I used to really kind of feel a strong conviction in a lot of the things that I believed, and I felt things really strongly, and really I had a lot more certainty than I do today. And there's a lot of factors that go into that for me personally. I know that I tend to try and keep an open mind and see everybody's point of view, and play the devil's advocate quite often, and kind of try and see things, I guess be empathetic with people and put myself in their position, which is great. I think that's a good thing, but sometimes I do it to a fault, to where I'm so concerned with coming off as close-minded or judgmental maybe to somebody, that I've almost become wishy-washy, to where to avoid offending someone or seeming rigid in my opinions or my beliefs. I'm almost afraid to assert my beliefs at all, or even talk about them, or even admit to them. It's I try and stay on the fence because I don't want to piss anybody off or whatever. And I think I need to find a middle ground, because I definitely feel like I'm vulnerable to outside influences more than I ever used to be. And I was thinking up until today that it was just me, I was just becoming really gullible, or really easily swayed by other people. And then I got to thinking about this whole internet thing, and it really is different. The last few years, I didn't really give enough thought to the fact that only in the last few years have I been able to go online and read people's opinions on any topic under the sun, and read or watch videos on YouTube that I've kind of I've been verging on a conspiracy theorist lately, watching movies like Zeitgeist on YouTube, and just getting worked up about all these things, because the thing is, there's good points to pretty much any argument. I mean, you can make a good point no matter what you're saying if you're eloquent and you're trying to persuade people, and you have to be careful, with what you believe. I guess I need to be always think about that because this guy, I met him when I was 18. I was living over on Vancouver Island in this little tiny town of like 200 people just for the summer, just working in this little art like gallery. And he was just happened to be working there too, and we met. And we both lived in Vancouver, and so anyway, we met over there, but we stayed friends. We're still friends to this day, and he's one of my, I don't know about closest friends because he lives farther away from me now. We don't talk all that often, but when we do, it's like he's just such an interesting person, and we just have these discussions, and we just have this connection on like a really kind of intellectual and emotional level, and I really value his friendship. But I think back to when he told me about that book and his enthusiasm and our relationship and our connection, all of those things had a bearing on how seriously I took that book and how much I allowed it to affect me. And back then, that's how it happened. Like, in order to find out, to be sort of turned on to information, you had to go through all these little steps that you didn't even realize you were doing. Dependent on who you were talking to, the circumstances that they were sharing this information with you. All these little coincidences, I guess, that would put people in your path and expose you to these ideas and this information. And now it's like you can sit at the computer and just surf, which I do quite a bit and I'm quite guilty of. And, for one thing, you kind of feel like you're in control of what information you find, like you're out there actively seeking it, and that kind of does away with the whole element of a chance and coincidence. And then the other thing is you can search. I go on the computer looking up one thing, and next thing you know, I'm looking at something completely unrelated, and I have no idea what the path was that took me there. Like I lose track after